Hey guys, it is Christine. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I am a homeschooling mama of 3 kiddos, and I love to share homeschool content here on this channel. Also, you should know that the lighting might look a little bit different. I might look a little bit different to what is coming up in the video because I'm actually refilming this introduction. Because I'm not even joking you. I started it like 6 times and then I put it on to edit it, and it was still it was just messed up. So I'm having to refilm it now for a 7th time. So I hope you appreciate this very well curated introduction to this homeschool video. Basically, what I wanted to say is, if you're new and you want to see more homeschool content, then go ahead and subscribe. This video today is about the homeschool laws in New Zealand and how to start getting homeschooling here. It is in collaboration with a group of other wonderful homeschool mamas on YouTube. I have the playlist with all their videos in it linked in my description below. And the lovely ladies who put this together were Kristen from My Cathedral Garden and Christina from Rooted Homeschool. So thank you so much, ladies, for thinking of me and adding me to the collaboration. I appreciate it. There are women in there from all over the United States, and also I know at least one other international homeschool mama. So go ahead and check them out. It is, I'm sure, going to be eye-opening to see the different laws and the different ways that countries work in regards to homeschooling. So check them out and keep watching to find out exactly what it's like in New Zealand. All right, so something that you may or may not know about me is that I am a 2nd-generation homeschooler. So my mom actually homeschooled me from, I think I was about 11, right through to high school graduation. And so I am quite familiar with the homeschooling laws and how things have changed and how they haven't changed over the years because, I remember my mom applying for everything. I remember her recording everything and all that kind of stuff. And so it's kind of a unique perspective to share. So obviously, if you're from the US, all of the states have different regulations and laws, and that's something that you need to know about firsthand. And it's no different in New Zealand, except that New Zealand's a very little country, and so we just have one law, obviously. But you need to be aware of them because you can get in trouble if you're not following the law. So here are our rules for in New Zealand. In New Zealand, if you want to homeschool your child, you have to either have them registered at a school before they turn 6, or you have to have a homeschool exemption. Those are the 2 things you can choose. They either have to be registered at a school or they have to have a homeschool exemption. And that's before age 6 because legally they do not have to attend school until age 6, which personally I think is wonderful because there are a lot of countries where children are required to go to school a lot younger than that, and all of the developmental study shows that there is no advantage to early academics, and there is even a chance of them being disadvantaged or creating a really negative connotation to learning if it's forced on them too early. So that is one thing I'm really grateful for in New Zealand, even with our public school system. Although I'm not a fan of it, I am glad that kids aren't forced to go to school at a super young age. So that's pretty awesome. And so the way that you then go about getting that homeschool exemption is you have to write up a big old report on how you plan to give your child as good of an education as they would get at public school, which I think a lot of homeschool moms here laugh at because, duh. Of course they're going to get as good as, our goal is better than, it's not as good as, but that's just, you can understand from a legal standpoint, that's what they want. So the way I did it, because it can be very overwhelming when you're oh my goodness, how am I going to write this all out? I actually went online and found some really great support groups in New Zealand. The one that I follow on Facebook is Homeschool New Zealand, and there was a woman's name in there who was very highly recommended. Her name was Cynthia Hancox, and she is a very, very experienced lady with homeschooling. She provides wonderful guidance with applying for it and just guidance in general. She's amazing. And so I bought her starter pack. And so in her pack, she gives you a very thorough guide on how to write your homeschool exemption. She then also offers a service to review it or even to write it for you. And so depending on your budget, you could do whatever you wanted there. Now, I did the starter guide, and then I went ahead and had her review it for me because it was my first time writing one. And I want to say that I started writing it probably around December, and I had to have it in by the 26th of March, but I wrote it like way ahead of time because I wanted time to like let myself, get familiar with everything. And then it can take up to 6 weeks to get your exemption back, and you need that before your child turns 6. And so I gave myself plenty of time to do it. It wasn't hard to write at all. Honestly, it really, really wasn't difficult to write. It felt overwhelming because it was like, oh my goodness, where do I start? But with her guide, it just helped to break things down and simplify it a lot. And a lot of it is just jargon, and that can seem overwhelming. So I wrote it out, I did the exemption, and I actually sent it to her to get reviewed. And she pointed out a couple of things. She said nothing in it was wrong, but if I wanted to have like a really strong chance of having it accepted on the first go, then I should add these couple of things or tweak these couple of things. And so I went ahead and did that, and I sent it off, and it was approved within like 2 or 3 weeks. I think it was really, really quick. I just got notification via email, and that was that. So everything you need to know is on the Ministry of Education's website. Otherwise, look up, I don't know what the domain of her website is. I know it's Cynthia Hancock's. It might be cynthiahancocks.com. If I remember, I will try and put it in the description for you so you can check that out. But she was just super, super helpful. And there are, like, say you send it in and they're not happy with it, they can decline it, but they first always send back, like if there are issues with it, they'll send back and give you a chance to respond to it. And I think you have up to like 4 weeks to respond to that. They don't come and interview your house or anything. They will just send it. You can actually request for them to send any questions they have for you via email, so you have time to think about them and then send back a written reply. So it's actually very flexible. It can sound daunting and scary, but for the most part, they're actually really helpful. And then once you have your homeschool exemption, that is it. That's it. There is nothing more required of you. You will get a letter out to you a couple of times a year where you are offered a sum of money. And that is not to go towards homeschool supplies. It's technically meant to pay you, but it's like not even close to what an income would be. It's like you would laugh at it. It is a blessing though, because you can like put it towards books and stuff. So you get that a couple of times a year. You don't have to have it. You can choose not to take it, but all you have to do is sign for it, send it away, and they put the money into your account. And it's supposed to be like compensation for the people teaching, but it really isn't at all, but it's still a blessing. So there's that. There are no visits, there are no records, nothing like that. Once upon a time when my mom was homeschooling us, they did do visits. They would give you time, like before it wasn't just like a pop in. Like they always had to give you notice that they were coming. And I don't know if they ever actually visited us. I don't think they did, but they did visit a friend of ours. And it was fine. Like there was no issue. But what happened since I was homeschooled and now that I'm homeschooling my kids, they no longer do those visits. And it's because they found that there were just no issues. They found that the homeschool families were exceeding expectation, and so it was just a waste of their resources to be sending people out to do these checks when these homeschool families were doing really well. Now, you can be subjected to one of those visits if somebody raises a concern with them. They might be concerned that your children aren't being adequately educated, or there might be abuse in the home or something like that. I know everyone has different thoughts about that, but that is the only time when those visits you might be subjected to them. So aside from that, there's no rules for how many hours you have to do. There's no rules for like keeping records or anything. I do like to keep a record because if anyone should happen to check in on us, I'd like to know that I do have physical evidence that I have been teaching my children, even though I'm sure that they could sit down and do schoolwork, no problem, or answer questions or whatever. So I do like to keep that, but there are no records. So I would say the negative side to our laws in New Zealand, if there are any, would just be that it's maybe a bit overwhelming when you first try to get your exemption to homeschool. It's like it was pages and pages and pages of writing out what curriculum I plan to use, what goals I have for my child to achieve, how I plan to evaluate those goals, and how they can demonstrate to me that they've learnt what I'm wanting to teach them, essentially. And you have to break that down subject by subject according to the subjects that are taught in our schools here, in our public school system. And so it felt daunting to do that. And I think especially if perhaps you're not very confident with writing skills, then that can be very overwhelming. But like I said, there is support out there, and I would guarantee that any homeschooling family would be happy to help you out. So reach out to homeschool communities, homeschool friends, and see if they can support you through that process, because we love to see kids being homeschooled. We obviously think it's a really great choice. The positive side, obviously, is that there are basically no rules, and that is just such a blessing because we can be flexible. I don't follow the same route, the same schedule as the school here. I just make up my own. We take breaks when we need to take breaks. We do more school when we need to do more school. We pick different curriculum and different subjects to what they might always teach in school. We do it in a different way. And to me, that is just such a blessing to have that freedom, because there are so many places where that is not possible. There are so many countries where it is illegal to homeschool at all. And so it will never, ever be something that I take for granted, how much freedom we have in the country that I live in. We don't have freedom in every sense, but we certainly do in this. And so I'm very grateful for that. So that is what it is like to homeschool in New Zealand, how you get started. I will put relevant websites down in the description below. You mainly want the Ministry of Education, Cynthia Hancock's, and I can put the Homeschooling New Zealand website down there too for you. And even that Facebook group, I will try and remember to put that down too. So if you're brand new to wanting to homeschool and you're exploring your options, then that is what you want to check out. So I hope this was helpful and maybe informative and interesting. If you have any questions for me, do leave them in the comments down below and I'll do my best to answer. But thank you so much for watching, and do not forget to go and check out the other ladies' videos. I'm certainly going to be having a look. I find it very interesting how the laws differ from state to state. And I know there is another YouTube homeschooling mama who is from Canada. So again, I'm very curious to know what the Canadian homeschool laws are, because I actually have no idea. So check them out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
The world had more of your smile. What if the wind could spread your love? What if your sweetness could reach everyone? There'd be no war.